We are talking about imaginary numbers or lateral numbers, and we want to define and use the imaginary unit I. So we have to remember that this is a pattern and it continues. So we have to just know the pattern. So powers of I. Anything to the 0 power is 1. And so that's where we're going to start from. So right here, I'll take a look at this graph in a minute. The next thing we know, I to the first power, anything to the first power is itself. So I to the first power is 1. I squared, otherwise known as I times I, is -1. So here we have, this one would just be written as I, right? I to the first is I. Next one here we have I times I. I squared is -1. So now we have I to the third. Well, we can think about it like this. We can think about it as I squared times I. Well, I squared, we already said, was -1, and I to the first is I. So basically, we just said we can write this as I times -1, which is just -I. The last one here we have is I to the fourth, and we can think about this one as I squared times I squared. Well, up here we said I squared was equal to -1. So really what we're saying is -1 times -1. -1 times -1, that is equal to 1. And this pattern continues because basically we get stuck in a pattern of I times -1 or -1 times -1. So basically I to the first is I, and I to the fifth is also I to the sixth is -1, I squared is -1. So the cycle repeats itself every 4 degrees. So to visually think of this, we can think of it as being as a rotation. So if we start here, and we add a full rotation, or if we think of it as quarter rotations, I to the 0 would be right here. I raised to the 0 power, and that would be anything to the 0 power is 1. And then we go to I to the first power, which is equal to I. And then we go to I to the second power, which is equal to -1. And then we go to I to the third power, which is equal to -I. And then we're back to the start again, or back to repeating itself. So now we are on I to the fourth equal to 1 again, or I squared times I squared. Then we just keep going. I to the fifth is equal to I to the sixth is equal to -1, I to the seventh is equal to -I, and I to the eighth is equal to 1. So as we repeat, as we keep going, as the degrees get higher, we just continue to repeat around this rotation. So we can think about starting here on the right and going in a counterclockwise motion, but we're also thinking that we finish at the same spot we started. So now we want to simplify these. And basically, when we simplify this, we're going to either get 1i, -1, or -i, depending on where we fall on the rotation. And the way that we do that is we go back to division. And we know that we're going by, our pattern is repeating by 4s. So all we're going to do is we're just going to take our exponent and we're going to divide it by 4. So 35 divided by 4. And when we go ahead and do that, we say that 4 goes into 35 8 times, and that's 32. 8 times 4 is 32. So when we finish, there's nothing that we bring down, so we can write it as a fraction, 8 3/4. That's how many times we go around. So the thing that's important here is because we start here, we go around 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That took us to 32. And then it says we have to go 3 more. 1, 2, 3. So this is the thing that's the most important, because that tells us that we're at -i. So we can write this down as I to the 35th power is equal to -i. We do this. We can do the same thing for I to the 45th power. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the exponent, which is 45, and I'm going to divide it by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. Bring down the 5. 4 only goes into 5 once. So we have 1 left over. We don't have anything else to bring down, so we can write it as a fraction, 1/4. And again, the remainder, the numerator of the remainder is the important part. So we go around 11 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 1 more. So I to the 45th is equal to I. Then we have I to the 36th, and we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to say 36 divided by 4. And in this case, we know that 4 goes into 36 9 times. And so 36 minus 36 is 0. So then we have 0 divided by 4, and that is our remainder here. So we go around 9 times. There's no extra, so we know that I to the 36th is equal to 1. Then we have I to the 270th. So we can slide this up a little bit. And we're going to do the same thing. 270 divided by 4. And we get 4 goes into 27 6 times. So that's 24. And we subtract it and we get 30, because we 3 and bring down the 0. And 4 goes into 37 times. 7 times 4 is 28. Subtract it, and then we get 2. So that's our remainder of 2. So then we go 2 over 4 and a remainder of 2. Now we could go around to our 67 times, but we understand that we're starting here and we have a remainder of 2. So we're starting here, then we go 1, 2. So we know that I to the 270th is equal to -1.